What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. I'm Drew Dinkmeyer, here with Mike Gallagher, Justin Fan, and all of you from Discord in chat. So happy to see you guys today. We've got an 11-game slate. We've got tons of injuries to walk through, and I've got two of the best in the business to do it with me. Mike, how are you on this fine Friday morning?
Doing great. 5,000 words down for matchups is the standard now, and that's what I hit. But yeah, it's a real big slate today. A lot of injuries. It's a lot of bets to be made. We're going to be firing like crazy. It's a good day.
Love to see it. Justin, before I see how you're doing, I got to let the people know this show is officially sponsored by our friends at Underdog Fantasy. They have daily NBA snake drafts for money, running in addition to many formats of NFL contests, still running for huge prizes. If you're playing NBA Pick'em, in-season subscribers can use our tool to compare ETR projections to their game. If you haven't signed up for Underdog yet, please use promo code ETR for a matching deposit up to $100. That's promo code ETR at checkout, underdogfantasy.com. Justin, how are you on this fine Friday?
I'm glad you're doing all the shilling for me. I can just do the injury analysis part with you guys, but pretty quiet morning. Not much going on. Pretty tame slate. So I mean, we got Embiid, we got Russell Westbrook coming off the bench. It's a lot of stuff to get into.
Yeah, it's a lot. It is morning for these guys. It's afternoon for me. For those in chat confused by my nomenclature, the Dink emoji does not work on the YouTube bots. Sorry about that. All right, let's get into the injury stuff today. We've got plenty to talk through. Let's start with the Lakers. We've got a Q tag on Anthony Davis. We have a Q tag on Russell Westbrook that got upgraded to probable. We've got a Bron probable tag. We've got new lineups that they're talking about running out there, which kind of makes sense for this matchup against Minnesota. Justin, what are your expectations? Do we see AD tonight? How many different GIFs and graphics do you have prepared to be tweeting tonight?
So I do expect AD to go tonight. He went through shoot around, and the comments asked for from Darvin Ham was that he was fine. So this can continue to be a thing. Like, I've had the AD locker room tweet ready to go and ready to send for every game so far this season. He's only gone once, but I expect that to be a high possibility moving forward. Like, the aggravation risk here is real. He tweaked that back last game by just hanging on the rim. Like, just simple things like that. And he looked obviously very in a lot of discomfort afterwards. So I have no interest in AD because I think there's a major downside there with locker room trips and, aggravation. And so we have this word on the new starting lineup that we saw at shoot around. It's going to be LeBron, Beverly, Lonnie Walker, AD, and Damian Jones. Makes a little sense here because they're going up against Cat and Rudy Gobert. Problem is they are a horrendous floor spacing team, and they're adding Damian Jones for Austin Reeves, which exacerbates that problem even more. I do have some interest, I guess, in LeBron with Russ heading into the second unit. They're splitting up their minutes even more, which is great for LeBron. I still think he can win the spot against McDaniels, but this is just a offense to stay away from generally right now. It's bad. I mean, their offensive rating as a starting unit was terrible. I don't imagine it improves at all now, moving Damian Jones in there. So this is mostly just a stay away spot for me for the Lakers.
Mike, are you buying into the LeBron narrative? The LeBron narrative that he wants to shoot more. He's not going to make the mistake of being passive. Do you buy the narrative?
Yeah, LeBron's squeaky wheel narrative for sure. Dan Wokey had mentioned the other night that the quote here is LeBron James flat out said he's going to be more aggressive, looking for his own scoring opportunities. So, man, interesting, and Fan kind of alluded to it. This Wolves defense is like such a paint protecting, leave guys open for threes. They are leading the league with almost 24 wide open threes per game. That is a stupid high number. So it sets up like really poorly for them. Going bigger, Fan mentioned, just taking it. They're not going to shoot any threes, and this defense that gives them up. I actually took Wolves -7 because I hate myself because I lost my shit with betting for them against the Spurs. So I like them there. But yeah, I'm down. I mean, I expect LeBron to. LeBron's, obviously a highly motivated guy. He can't be happy about this team sucking. So yeah, I'm buying the squeaky wheel.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting tonight. Let's keep on with the stars on the injury report with our Pelicans. All of us are big on the Pelicans this year. no Brandon Ingram tonight, and then everybody else is questionable. Yeah. Zion, CJ, Herb Jones, Jose Alvarado, Dyson Daniels. It's like a whole team of questionables. What are we thinking tonight in terms of who is most likely to sit of this group and who is most at risk? Justin, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think, I mean, we haven't gotten a lot of information. Like the CJ injury popped up randomly. I haven't really heard any details about it. I do kind of expect Zion to go. We'll lean more towards probable than doubtful. Herb went through shoot around, was taking shots. There was video that got posted. He looked pretty good. So I actually think like a lot of these guys are more on the probable side of the Q tag than the doubtful side. So right now would expect the lineup to be CJ, Murphy, Herb Jones, Zion, and Valanciunas. And I'm like some of these other guys like Alvarado, Dyson Daniels have no idea on their injuries.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten any details. They just popped up on the injury report like a lot of these other guys. So I am, the Zion matchup is really good for the Suns who don't protect the rim that well. But I am curious to see what his minutes look like tonight. I'll kick it over to you guys to see what you guys think his minutes projection and how limited do you think he'll be in this spot.
We don't have anything. We don't have anything limited on him currently in our projection. So if we think we should, then it's an adjustment that we need to make. But we don't have anything. Mike, what are your thoughts there?
No, I think he's okay. Mentioned he got some work in practice yesterday as well. So it wasn't a full practice. So they're still trending him up. And again, like it wasn't a bad injury. He wanted to play through it, and the training staff was like, "Yo, come here." So it was almost out of his hands. So they're certainly going to want to make sure he feels good. So if he is out there, it's a pretty good indication he's 100%. So I would expect him to get maybe not a full workload, given how he's kind of had some time off here, but pretty close to full.
Yeah. Are you defining full right now as like 30 minutes or?
We have him for 33. So
okay.
Seems a little hefty to me, but
yeah. Probably take one or two off that.
Everything around Zion is a little hefty to me. So
yeah.
And just with CJ, he has it's an interphalangeal. It's basically this part of your finger right here, your middle finger. So that's important finger.
Easy there, Gallagher. Easy.
I had them both up there.
Fan-friendly.
Station here. Yeah, I already dropped the S-bomb, so I might as well lean into it all the way. But so he should be all right. I think everyone's going to be out there now. Really good game. I'm kind of considering going, honestly.
Nice.
To watch our Pelicans.
Yeah, that would be a good game. I was looking at that line earlier tonight, and then I saw the injury report, and I couldn't tell. I honestly didn't have a good feel if I thought the line was expecting anyone other than Ingram to sit. It seemed like it wasn't. I think it was 7.5 or 7 for the Pels. Phoenix has just been playing really, really well to start the season.
Yeah. So we're expecting Michaela to be on CJ and Cam to be on Zion. that seems problematic.
Yeah.
29th in at rim allowed too. So Zion could eat num like the YouTube algorithm.
There we go. All right. Let's move it to other big name questionables on the slate. This morning, we got news that Joel Embiid was going to be questionable with injury management as the tag. Philadelphia, always a team that is close to the vest in terms of giving information around injuries. And we found out, basically once they started the season poorly, we found out that Joel was apparently hurt in the preseason and playing through and recovering in the offseason from injury issues. So load management, 5th game of the season or whatever it is, not unusual these days. We've seen it around the league. Zach LaVine, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George. Mike, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts on Embiid's availability tonight?
First, knee injury, not foot, not great. I don't like to hear him get 2 injuries that have plagued him throughout his career. Midday Q tag, not great. So we saw, interestingly, the last game, he played 38 minutes despite the talk of Doc Rivers wanted to keep him down. So that was a bunch of garbage. We'll see. He'll probably be at game time. I didn't see anything happen to him in the last game. I watched that game pretty closely. Tailed fan on a really sharp bet on betting the Raptors. So I didn't really see too much there. We'll find out. Obviously, it would be mostly split between Harrell and Paul Reed, a little bit of PJ Tucker, which they probably would want to lean into. Maybe even early. I'd be curious to see if they start with that lineup, given the way that Pascal's, not really traditional center too. So we'll expect to see a decent bit of the PJ because you're going to switch. You want to play smaller. The Raptors, killed them in transition. 16.
I think they'd start Melton. I think they'd
that's what
start
I'm
Melton
saying.
or House. I do not think they'd start big. Personally,
I agree. Yeah, I agree. That's kind of what I was alluding to. But yeah, their transition defense is like the worst we've ever seen, and the Raptors have a really good transition offense. They've had it for years now, so it's a really unfair fight. And I'm tilting. I didn't bet that this morning before we got the Embiid news.
Same. I mean,
the other guy that can start would be Tybal as well, who there's some beats suggesting needs to play more, just for defensive purposes. But that would be a lot of offensive responsibility on the other three if it's Tybal and Tucker out there.
Yeah, for me, midday Q tag and first leg of back-to-back is generally not a good sign. But we talked about this on the preseason pod. Like Embiid, there are a lot of spots that came up last season where we thought Embiid would sit out. That would make a lot of sense for him to get load managed, and he didn't. Yep. And I think this is a spot where I'm going to give him a little bit of benefit of doubt and think he has a good shot of playing despite this being a traditional rest spot. They're 1-4. They're sputtering at the gates, and they need him to play, as many games as possible. And I think he wants to play in these spots. So maybe, he does give it a go, and Doc keeps his word and does scale his minutes back and doesn't play him 38 again. But I think this is a spot where, traditionally I would say he sits, but like a Zach LaVine where, it makes a lot of sense for him to sit. I think Embiid has a good chance of playing.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. It's front end of a back-to-back, and they play at Chicago tomorrow. And if you just look at the two rosters in terms of who you might want to have Embiid more available for, it would seem like the Chicago game would make more sense just from a size perspective, right? Mm-hmm. So if they're saying because they've got 3 games in 4 nights, they have this back-to-back, then they go play at Washington on Monday. So if they're basically saying hey, we know he's going to miss one of these 2 games, I wouldn't be surprised if it's tonight, just because against Vooch, you do need some size. Like Harrell and Reed are pretty small to go up against Vooch. That would be my only thoughts.
Yeah, and it's pretty straightforward. James Harden, 11% usage rate differential last season with Harden with Embiid off the court, and then Maxey and Tobias Harris 6.5%. We mentioned some lower usage options that they can plug in there, like Daniel House and PJ Tucker and D'Anthony Melton. And Matisse Thybulle, if they're looking at massive workloads, those 3, if Embiid is ruled out.
Yeah, and I'm really interested to see if Embiid is ruled out. One thing, and this is just a nerdy spreadsheet thing, but Montrezl Harrell and Paul Reed's usage rates have been way, way down this year in that backup center role. And I would be kind of interested to see if we got something more along the lines of what they've normally been, which is high teens, and in Harrell's case, low 20s. They've been low teens, and in Reed's case, single digits, because of Harden and Embiid just soaking up every position. Obviously, they're not out there with Embiid, but it'd be interesting to see if in this scenario they actually were utilized a little bit more.
Should add to Maxey 43 minutes. Harden played a bunch. If Embiid, they may play crazy.
They're stretching all these guys a ton, and that happens against Nick Nurse because Nick Nurse keeps his starters out there a ton, so you feel compelled. So it's a little challenging on that front.
Also, when you're losing games, you got to stretch your starters' minutes. You can't be riding that bench. You got to put your best players in. They're just grasping at straws for something to turn things around. So, big workloads potentially for sure.
So we talked about them playing Chicago tomorrow. Chicago's also on the front end of the back-to-back. So have the Bulls come out with an official tag on LaVine? We're just expecting
injury management. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I wasn't sure if they came out with the official report and if he was actually listed as Q, but we were expecting that this would be a potential challenge spot on the front end of a back-to-back. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts, Mike? I'll start with you on LaVine's availability tonight. We kind of know how to play it if he doesn't. DeMar sees the big usage spike and all those things. But of these 2 games, San Antonio and Philadelphia, how do you think the Bulls tactically play this one?
At home against Philadelphia seems like the spot, right? They're going to manage him. Even Billy Donovan said he looks good when he's healthy, but we have to be precautionary on this and sit him out. So,
and why even travel? They were
right.
In the last game. So
I'll add Bulls Twitter put out a little video of DeMar about to crack 20,000. He's 7 away, and I broke out the magnifying glass, and I was like, I don't see LaVine there. So I saw most of the players there. I didn't see LaVine out there, and I checked haircuts, I checked everything from back of head, so I didn't see him out there. So I think he's going to sit. Alex Caruso got the start against Miami. Would expect him to start, probably get the Keldon matchup So things could really funnel in to Pirtle against a team that does give up the inside stuff too. So, but yeah, I'm expecting LaVine to sit.
Your thoughts there, Justin?
Same. They don't play again until Tuesday, so LaVine will have 2 full days off after that Philly game to recover and get right. So yeah, Vooch, DeMar, Io season, a really good matchup here against the Spurs, who play fast. They are, getting into their actions real quick on the offensive side, like one move, dribble, drive, kick. Like their pace is way up there, and it's like taking teams who are a little unprepared for it. But yeah, I think LaVine sits tonight.
Yeah. All right, let's get into some other questionables. Jaden Ivey for the Pistons. He was a late scratch on Wednesday night. I'm getting my days confused. On Wednesday night, he was a late scratch against Washington, I believe it was the last game. Or no, was it against Atlanta last game?
Atlanta, yeah.
Atlanta last game.
It's they're baseball back-to-back.
Yeah, they're doing the back-to-back again. They're playing Atlanta again tonight. What are your thoughts on Jaden's availability, Justin?
Yeah, so Dwayne Casey said that Ivy had a big-time fever before Wednesday's game, and the medical team sent him home. He said he believes he'll be back Friday, so assuming he's more on the probable side of that Q tag. We saw Corey Joseph got the start for Ivy on Wednesday, did literally nothing in 32 minutes, like 5% usage rate. I guess some things to watch here are Isaiah Livers' minutes. He's on the rise from 16 to 21 to 24. He benefited some from Ivy being out, but we see Kevin Knox is pretty much out of the rotation now. And, there are paths for Livers, who we talked about in the preseason pods, having some buzz potentially, especially with Bagley out. There's some paths for him playing low to mid 20 minutes consistently. I would just say, one thing that they should be looking at more, that they might be looking at more, is staggering Kate Cunningham and Jaden Ivey their minutes, because when both of them are on the floor, they're decent, and when both of them are off the floor, they're getting just destroyed because they're getting terrible guard play from Killian Hayes. Corey Joseph's not doing much. Hamadou's not doing a ton. So would it be interested in see how much staggering we see of those two moving forward? And we saw Kay just go off without Jaden Ivey, 38% usage, Boyan 29% usage. So and the chance that that Ivy sits again, those two would be the biggest beneficiaries. Once again.
Yeah, and Corey Joseph, I'm not sure if he's still min price again. He was pure 3K on DraftKings, and that's why people played him and whatnot. I don't think it was a terrible play. I think a 5% usage rate is bottom percentile out on there. But you see he racks up 3 boards, 6 assists. He does enough of little things in 32 minutes that wouldn't be afraid to go back to that well just because it didn't work out the first time. If he's still around that stone minimum, I think that was a fine play.
What you care about there is 31.6 minutes.
Exactly.
That's the standout for me, and how little they went to some of these other guys off the bench.
And that was surprising to me after kind of the hype train that Killian Hayes had during the preseason, was playing really well, and only to get 16 minutes in a game that Jaden Ivey sits is not encouraging at all. So yeah. Okay.
Yeah, the Atlanta bench was really impactful. In the second half, they really put the game away. Before John Collins came in, made a huge block, chase down block that really, was really well done. I'll add to Casey says he kind of wants to run them together to kind of give him that experience. That's the Ivy Cunningham thing. Right. So I don't think that he's going to lean into it, but maybe he does. And maybe Ivy's limited too.
Killian Hayes, 17% from the field, 17% from 3. That guy just can't shoot.
It's not good.
Brutal.
Yeah.
It's not good.
Reverse Jaden McDaniels' new jump shot narrative.
All right, let's go to Minnesota. Kyle Anderson is questionable tonight. They've played the last few games without him. We haven't seen a big change to the rotation, so I don't think it impacts things dramatically, but we have seen McDaniels have a little bit longer leash early in the season without kind of that threat of competition there. Any rotation notes here if Kyle Anderson is able to go, Mike?
No, other than just Jalen Noel's been freaking great.
Yeah,
off the bench, man. Really was their standout play. He was their best player, bar none, in this Spurs game. So I hope his role doesn't get cut. We'll see if they run him as more of a point guard rather than a wing. They do like Jordan McLaughlin, but yeah, we saw they just leaned into him. They iced Naz Reid more or less. Prince's minutes got up a little bit, so he'll come down. But they do like Slow-Mo, and he fits really well with their big rotation. Finch had said it. They really like their rotation with Cat and Gobert. He says he's basically got that all figured out now. So expect that to be pretty similar going forward. And just a random note, man, the Gobert pick and roll game just hasn't been there. He hasn't got the clean rim runs and all that stuff. We've been tilting the overs that haven't hit. But curious to see this matchup here. The Lakers protect the paint pretty well, so not the greatest spot. I was looking for more exterior guys like Ant, who popped off in the last game as well with a 3-point festival in this game. Everyone was making 3-pointers against the Spurs too.
All right, let's go to the Nuggets, where Michael Porter Jr., Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Devon Reed are all questionable. We got a little bit of information that, right before coming on here, that from the Denver Beats, that Michael Porter Jr. is expected to play. Justin and the Underdog Fantasy team were on that right before we hopped on here. Justin, what are your thoughts on KCP, MPJ, and Devon Reed tonight?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't gone with the questionable tag on MPJ since the beginning, because Mike Malone right after said he expected MPJ to be back, and that's been the consistent theme throughout. So would fully expect him back in the lineup tonight. Don't think he's under really any minutes restrictions. His minutes have been really solid to start the season. KCP, he went back to the bench after suffering that ankle sprain. I was surprised. I was like, there's no way he's coming back. Yeah. And that seems like an injury that's going to cost him some time potentially, just looking at how bad it was. He had to be helped to the locker room. So would think that he is going to end up missing tonight's game. So yeah, let's talk about the rotation if KCP ends up missing.
Yeah, Mike, what do you think? Who slides into the starting lineup in the absence of KCP? Is it just the utility knife, Bruce Brown?
Yeah. Super sub. Malone said he started at the 1, started at the 3. He's the backup 1 through 4. Let's tack on starting 2 to that resume. So yeah, I would think he starts. They like Christian Brown quite a bit. He got really talked up. Malone was saying doesn't look like a rookie, so I'd expect him to probably play behind Bruce, and then maybe we get a little bit of overlap with Bones and Jamal Murray. But yeah, that's pretty straightforward. I think we'll see maybe a little bit of Jeff Green go away with MPJ back. But yeah, they've got a lot of pieces here, and Christian Brown stepping up.
Christian Brown is a guy I was talking like. There's been a lot of good buzz on him. He's played pretty well, and I think he's just gonna earn himself more minutes as we go along during the season. So he's the guy that stands up. But yeah, Bruce Brown
he's one of those guys that I don't think he's at least at this point, I don't think he's as good as Moses Moody, but he gives me the same types of vibes as Moses Moody when Moses Moody came in the league, where it was just like, I know exactly how to fit on this team, which is basically just be ready to shoot when I'm wide open and go defend on the other end and move the ball when I'm not open, right? Yep. Just do those 3 things, do them well, do them effectively, and you never look like – a lot of times when you watch basketball, the rookies, they stand out in a bad way, usually. They're holding the ball too long. They're disrupting offense. They're getting lost on defense. With Brown, same thing as I saw with Moody early on, which was you don't know that it's not a veteran out there, which is a really a big compliment for a young player early on.
Yeah, I want to touch on this real quick before we move on. I want to touch on Nikola Jokic's usage rate a little bit. Obviously, we saw it bounce back in a big way last game without Michael Porter Jr., but with MPJ being back, heading into last game, he was 5th on the Nuggets in usage rate behind Jamal, MPJ, Bones
has a huge usage rate.
Aaron Gordon. Yeah. So I think it was before last game, it went from 31% last season to 21% through the first 4 games. So with MPJ back, this is a decent matchup for him against Kelly Olynyk and the Jazz interior defenders. But how concerned are we about this usage drop for Jokic moving forward? And is this going to be a thing where, okay, he put up 69 FanDuel points last game. How much is that going to come back now with MPJ expected to be back in the lineup?
Yeah, I think early in the season, it's going to take some time, and Jokic is going to pick his spots, because I think he is very focused on trying to get everyone feeling comfortable. And it's not just the return of Michael Porter Jr. and Jamal Murray. There's new pieces all over. Bruce Brown's a new piece. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is a new piece. He's playing with a lot of new guys that I think he's trying to make them all feel comfortable early on. And one of the guys who we've seen the usage rate actually spike a little bit has been Aaron Gordon, who you would think would lose a ton of touches in this, right? But I think Jokic is pretty sharp here in the sense that he knows he has to keep these guys around him that are all going to be the guys who are going to defend for him all year long. He needs to keep them energized by getting them offensive opportunities and touches as well. So I think you're going to see in key moments Jokic be more aggressive offensively. But yeah, I think the usage rate this year is probably going to settle closer to 25-26%, not the 28 to 30 that we saw last year.
Yeah, a few things to add. The Jazz are giving up 42% of shots at the rim. That's a stupid high number, leads the league. So I like to see Jokic get in there and score. We saw his rebounding take a massive hit in that first game. Utah really gang rebounds. Their rebounding has been just limiting a lot of centers, but the scoring should be there. So kind of, double on the defensive side to get boards there. And then just with Christian Brown again, real quick, he reminded me not as far as play type, but it's just as Herb Jones, low draft capital, and gives them exactly what they need. The Pelicans needed an on-ball defender so bad. The Nuggets need just a little bit more scoring punch off the bench really badly. And it's just A+ fit, and looks like a really good pick for them.
Yeah. Sticking with that game, let's talk about some of the Jazz injuries. Rudy Gay and Simone Fontecchio are out. Colin Sexton and Walker Kessler are listed questionable there. And generally with the Jazz, I believe they're also on the front end of a back-to-back. But generally with the Jazz, you worry about kind of the rotations getting really deep because they have a lot of guys that can play and it cutting down the starters' minutes. And we've seen this happen on occasion. So you take out Fontecchio, you take out Gay, maybe Kessler, maybe Sexton, and all of a sudden there's not that many guys there. So it's an interesting thing to kind of keep an eye on and pay attention to. It is on the front end of a back-to-back. And one of the ways that this Jazz team have won this year and played well is through effort and being able to play really hard. They're running a ton. They're getting a ton of transition opportunities. They're rebounding the basketball really well. And I do wonder a little bit if you thin them out, if that impacts their ability to perform as well as a team instead of having all these guys in the 20s in minutes. So let's start with you, Justin, on thoughts on Sexton and Kessler's availability tonight.
So Kessler didn't practice, and we got the coincidental Udoka Azubuike not being on injury report for the first time this season. He's been kind of shelved, ramping it up slowly. So putting two and two together, I kind of think Kessler might be closer to doubtful just because he didn't practice today and Azubuike's suddenly available. So we should see Azubuike kind of step into the rotation for the first time, claim some of those backup centers.
I feel like Azubuike comes into the rotation 10 times a year and half of them are against Jokic. I just feel like every time Azubuike becomes relevant, it's go defend Jokic for 16 minutes. Do your best.
They're just they were just saving him. They're ramping up for this Nuggets game. That was their plan the entire time. But like you said, this rotation maybe thins out a little bit, and some guys that could really benefit: Jordan Clarkson, THT against this Nuggets defense. THT is carving out a bigger and bigger role off the bench. He was a guy that Gallagher and I were like, is he? Should we put him above NAW in the depth chart in the preseason? What is his role even? But he's carving out, played 28 minutes off the bench last game against Houston. And I think Sexton, I don't know. I don't have a strong read on Sexton. Mike, do you have anything on?
I mean, it's an oblique injury. Oblique injuries are pretty rough. So I would probably lean out, but not that strong.
Yeah. But like Dink said, I mean, you take out Sexton, Rudy Gay from this rotation, it tightens a little bit, and it elevates the floors of guys like THT and Markkanen and Clarkson and Malik Beasley, right? So Clarkson, I mean, has really impressed for me. Obviously, we know him as a microwave scorer off the bench, but his assists.
His usage is actually down this year.
Yeah, I mean, he's been much more facilitator. They're running that side pick and roll with Kelly Olynyk and Jared Vanderbilt, and he's reading the floor really well. And I don't know if he's had this in his bag this entire time, but his point guard skills have been surprising to me. How well he's been able to run that, navigate those sets. But I think Clarkson and THT are the standouts for me on the Jazz side.
Few things to add. They had a lot of foul trouble, but they closed with Conley, Clarkson, Malik Beasley, and THT at the 4. He is not really a wing, and Hardy gave him a ton of credit. I mean, half the presser was just talking up Talen Horton-Tucker, partly because the questions were geared that way. But it was awesome, man. We had an under on him, but the Conley foul trouble boosted him a little bit too. But I expect him to get some overlap with Conley. I think he's kind of earned that role, and they're going to be able to go small. Should mention too, Laurie did get a lot of the Jokic matchup in the last game, so I think they're going to lean into some of these smaller lineups here to try to space the Nuggets out, who have been pretty good at protecting the interior when they're kind of humming, and their defense looked great, obviously against the Lakers. But I would expect kind of some smaller lineups, especially without Walker probably out.
All right, the last game the Utah Jazz had was against Houston, and we'll shift gears into either returns or new injury situations. On the Houston side of things, you've got Şengün back listed probable, and then Kevin Porter Jr. listed probable after kind of a scary injury last time out. Mike, do you anticipate any significant rotation adjustments here? They got Jae'Sean Tate back last game, incorporating Şengün into it this game. Is my guy Tari Eason on the verge of falling out of the rotation?
Yeah, not great with Şengün back. Interesting, as I noted, one of the shows we did, Silas was pretty hard on sticking with this. We're bringing him off the bench. And then the last time he was asked about it, 2 presses ago, sorry, he kind of hinted that Şengün could start. I still think they're going to lead with Jabari just to kind of, maybe lean into it a little bit, maybe start staggering the guards more to run with Şengün. So I would expect them to start the same group on the screen there, Şengün off the bench. And then Garuba goes bye-bye. Hate to see it for Tari Eason. And then, maybe we see Garrison Matthews get ticked down a little bit to play KJ some more minutes and stuff like that. But, I would expect the Jabari center minutes to hold up here.
Yeah, with Jae'Sean Tate back and starting, and they have KJ Martin as an option as well. I think it's another body that makes it more likely that Jabari starts at center for me, even against Nurkic. So I would expect Şengün to come off the bench. And we've talked. I mean, if you're a Şengün owner and you have him on your teams, like you want him in this spot away from Jalen Green and PJ. Like coming off, like starting is not always like Benny Mathurin's another guy. Like I want him off the bench. I like him in that high usage role. He played with the starters at the start of the second half, one of those games, and he was passive. He didn't do anything, right? So like Benny Mathurin and the Şengüns, you want these guys to come off the bench.
Yeah, and I am interested to see the one small rotation note that I'm interested to see is if they decide that Eason and they just want to play their best guys, right? Because I think if you just say like who's your best 8, 9, 10 guys, I think Tari Eason is definitely in that list, and you would get away from maybe Garrison Matthews, Daishawn Nix, and they can do that. It just requires them really trusting and staggering a little bit more Kevin Porter Jr., Jalen Green, and Eric Gordon as the primary ball handling guards. And they've staggered Gordon away, but they've really kept KPJ and Jalen Green largely together this season. And obviously, those two playing together is nice, but if you split them apart, you could get even more usage. And they've both seen 27% plus usage rates early in the season. There's potentially even more room if they choose to go that rate. They have benefited from not having Şengün around a little bit, who will soak up some usage as well. But there's some different like back end of the rotation stuff that I'm kind of interested in watching tonight, especially since it affects my guy Tari Eason, who I think is one of their 8, 9 best guys, but positionally might kind of get tossed aside here while they try to figure things out.
Yeah, I mean, they have a lot of 3-4s, and you look at what this team needed, it's defense, and Tari Eason checks that box, so they need it. They should be playing him more, just in general. But what I was going to ask about too is obviously KPJ coming off this knee to thigh issue, and you guys had an under on him. Is that just a projection thing? Are you expecting him to be limited, or is there a specific angle there?
So we took under 20.5 points on KPJ, and it's really just a pure projection thing. It's one of it just barely met our expected value criteria, which is usually about like upper 20s, low 30s in expected value. And we haven't projected at 18.7 points. There's a couple things going on with KPJ. So he's averaging 20.8 this year. I think it's something like that, right? So he's averaging right around that line.
I think 21.4.
Okay, 21. Right around that line. But a couple of things to note. He's shooting like 40% from 3, and he's shooting 87% from the line. He's like a career 70% free throw shooter. He shot 76% in the preseason. It's a smaller sample. I don't know what to do with that. So I've adjusted his shooting baseline on the free throw side to like 75%, giving him like a pretty big jump, right? But it's still a really small sample. And he's actually shot pretty poorly from 2 early on. We actually have him shooting even better than what we project. What he's done is he's cut down the turnovers. He's played a lot of minutes, and the usage rate's been really, really strong. Yeah. We just kind of looked at it and said, like, we've got max minutes projection on him. I've got max usage projection on him. I've got really friendly shooting baselines on him, and we're still coming in a little bit light. So we were like, okay. And we also think the Portland defense this year on the perimeter, even though they won't have Gary Payton yet, is significantly improved from last season. So we have Portland's defensive baselines a little bit better than last year as well.
Yeah, to add to that, they flip the matchups constantly. We've seen Jeremy Grant be an on-ball defender almost more than anything else. He's been guarding ball handlers a ton, so I expect him to pick up a lot of that matchup. Yeah, Kevin Porter Jr. is 8th in the NBA in shots off drives. He's shooting just 33% off those. Only DeJounte Murray is the only guard with a lower start. DeJounte's been terrible on drives so far this year. So, it's tougher than it looks. I love this game. I think this game's going to be really fun.
Yeah.
Definitely pumped for Anthony Simons. We love he's my matchups cover boy today. We know we love to play guards against the Rockets. So, should be a pretty exciting game.
It was an uncomfortable under that we took, Justin. It was a math-based under. I do always feel good though with KPJ. He is a guy that has been on the injury report in the past and played through stuff and exited games early. So like high bar unders, I like having a little bit of potential added expected value, just knowing that he did get banged up recently. Kind of thrown into the mix too.
Yeah, my rest of season points projection on him is like around 20, slightly below 20.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to take a bit of a step back. The usage is probably going to come down a little bit. It's been like 27.
In 27, and I think part of that is not having Şengün out there at all. I don't know how much they'll overlap, but for our model, bringing Şengün back does bring his points down a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
So we'll see. Okay. In terms of other new injury situations that we haven't dealt with before, in that same game, Damian Lillard, it sounds like it's going to be a week or two on Damian Lillard, perhaps more. We'll see. We have seen Damian Lillard play, or we've seen the Portland guys play without Damian Lillard a lot, but not this group, right? So like we've seen in the past, we've seen CJ and Anthony, and they've gone off. Last year, we saw Josh Hart go nuts for a stretch, right? But that was without Nurk and Dame and Ant. And so it's a little bit different this time around. And they have guys that have taken lead usage roles in other places before. In Simons, when Dame has sat, Nurkic, when Dame has sat, and Jeremy Grant when he played in Detroit. So we also took a Josh Hart under. It was lined at 15.5 points, which we had too high. We have him for like 14. And I love Josh Hart. I think the market, and I never want to assume exactly what the market is doing, but I think the market was a little bit too optimistic about the usage rate that he had last year in the sample without Dame, not factoring in the guys that he's playing with last year compared to this year. But we'll see on that front. How else do you think this rotation changes tonight in the absence of Damian Lillard? I'll start with you, Justin.
Yeah, Josh Hart, I don't think he's had a game this season above 16% usage. He's been really quiet just in terms of his shot volume. But Mike and I were talking about this before. We're leaning Shaedon Sharpe enters the starting lineup. That was
which is what I would love to see. I would love another usage guy in there.
Yeah. For your unders. Yeah, you're Shaedon Sharpe and not Keon Johnson.
Exactly.
But yeah, I think Shaedon Sharpe is a little bit cleaner. I think there's some speculation from one of the Sean Highkin, who has familiarity with the Blazers. He thought that Shaedon Sharpe would start too. That's, we'll kind of see. I think they like Justice Winslow in the 6-man role. Could see Keon Johnson being another option. That would probably be my second guess. I don't think we'll see Jabari Walker. I think that's full Galaxy brain. And then I also brought the Galaxy brain idea up to Gallagher too, that what if we see, Nas start and push Josh Hart up to the 2, which is possible too, because Hart's guarding a lot of perimeter players, and they've been mixing up their defensive matchups a lot. So I do think Sharpe ends up starting, and then Ant is going to go crazy. The Rockets, any matchup for guards against the Rockets is the nuts. So don't need to expand too much on that. And then Jeremy Grant should be in a great spot as well. Nurkic too. So we got the GP2 is out. For
reconditioning tag still.
For a bit. So wouldn't expect to see him. I mean, the Dame timeline is a little interesting. We'll see, because he was saying they don't play again until Wednesday of next week, and he was saying like he was hopeful to play Wednesday, and we've got this reeval 1 or 2 week timeline. So curious to see how much time he ends up missing.
I'll add he said he would have played through in a playoff game, so it's not too bad of a calf strain. Sounded pretty fine, so definitely probably closer to a week than 2. Just going back to the Shaedon Sharpe stuff. So it's just so clean to have Keon Johnson in the preseason was like basically the de facto Gary Payton role, where he would sub in for the guards when they would pull out Ant early and stagger him in that way. And then we saw also when Winslow was out of game, they went smaller. They put Keon in their rotation over going with more bigs. So you ask yourself, who would you rather have in the rotation? It's basically Keon Johnson or Jabari Walker, who I love. I thought he was awesome. But they trust Keon. Certainly, matchup-wise, you probably want to lean that way as well, too. So, yeah, I feel everything fan said, just to add some more context to it.
Also keeping Keon and Winslow together in the second unit gives you two ball handlers as well. Now, they'll stagger or Hart or Jeremy Grant into that situation as well. But just having two other guys that can handle a little bit loosens up the offense as well. And I do think, getting back to the Dame stuff, home matchup against Houston, not one you're too worried about sitting out. Take the time and reevaluate things. They've gone off to such a good start this season. You don't want to see him lost for more time. MWS in chat, can Houston go small to get Nurk off the court? Certainly. I mean, they're going to start. We think they're going to start a little bit smaller with Jabari at the 5 there. Whether they're able to get him off the court or not really honestly depends a lot on Nurk. Like these teams that play Nurk off the court, mostly it's Nurk that plays himself off the court by not having any chill whatsoever in terms of trying to barrel over people. So what are you guys' thoughts on that in terms of Nurk's?
And I think that Şengün being back and likely back in lineup messes that whole theory up, because they can go small for sure on the Houston side, and they did. Garuba only for like 8 minutes last game, and they can go with these Jabari and then back him up with some small with Şengün in there. He's going to play 20 minutes plus, and that's just another traditional big in there. So I think Nurkic's floor for the minutes is a little safer, that we know that Şengün's like going to be back in the lineup tonight.
Yeah. And to add to that too, Winslow being a 4 more of a staple, because when he lost minutes, it was against Sabonis and he played the 5. So they kind of need him there. So like it sounds weird, but like Dame not playing like low key helps Nurk's minutes, just because they have to allocate their resources at different spots.
Yeah, they also need more scoring too, which is something they need the offense a little bit more. Okay, a couple new injury situations we're dealing with. Orlando, man, it has not gone well for my Orlando takes. My Orlando lines already look dead. My Orlando overs look dead. And one of the thesis behind this was that they would not play RJ Hampton this year. And here we are. Jalen Suggs is out. Cole Anthony is out. Gary Harris is out. Devin Kennedy is out. And the last guard left on the roster is basically RJ Hampton. And they're staring it at the face. They're playing Terrence Ross 30 minutes a night. It is just not going great. Who are they going to start tonight in the absence of Cole Anthony? Mike, I'll start with you on your guess.
I'm on RJ Hampton Island.
Yep.
I just think he knows the defensive system. I think they're using for defense. I think it's going to be Franz running the offense. I think you just plug him in there and then run your rotation somewhat normally, have Franz come out early, run with the second unit. I just think it's a little cleaner to go that route rather than Kevon Harris, rookie, doesn't really know too much defensively. I'd rather have him out in the second unit with his inexperience. So I'm on RJ Hampton Island. I am not playing him in DFS. I want no part of him, but I would lean RJ Hampton. And yeah, that's just, it's like full on Chris Kaman laying down on the bench season for their point guard depth, man. It's unbelievably bad luck and just all at the same position.
Yeah. Justin, what are your thoughts?
I'm on Kevon Harris Island, and
you're not on an island. You got everybody's on.
Okay.
The rest of the ETR team is with you.
Yeah. I think RJ Hampton at this point is closer to being a starter for the Lakeland Magic than the Orlando. Like, he is horrendous.
So he's so bad.
How bad he is that he was a DNP CD last game, and they're still in that game, right? So he's like PER is like an outdated metric, but he has a 6 PER. Like he's been terrible this season. So we saw on Wednesday the Magic's second most used lineup, and they used 2 lineups pretty much, like 18 minutes to the starting lineup, and this lineup for 13 minutes. The next lineup was 6 minutes. So the second most used lineup was Franz Wagner, Houston, Kevon Harris, Bol, and Paolo Banchero. So they ran 13 minutes of that lineup with Point Franz without any issues. So that it gives you some credence of thinking that they're fine, starting him and alongside lower usage guys and Harris and Houston. So I think it's going to be Franz, Terrence Ross, Harris, Powell, and Wendell Carter Jr. But we'll see. I think it's possible they put a more traditional ball ball handler and lead guard in there and RJ Hampton, but I just think he's so washed and so bad at this point that I don't think they even want to stomach starting him at right now.
Yeah, I that's my lean as well. I think there's two points that are both merit attention. One is on Gallagher's side is they like Franz with the second unit as like leading the point guard and leading the offense and different things like that. And the best way to do that is start RJ Hampton, play him like the Keith Bogans type starters role, sub Franz Wagner out early. The Keith Bogans role that has now become the Patrick Williams role.
That is big time Keith Bogan shade.
It's somehow become like Chicago Bulls lore that if you're a starting wing, you play like 8 minutes a half regardless. But then get Franz in the second unit and then still keep Hampton's minutes down. That's one method to do it. Either way, I don't think Hampton plays a ton. So if he's starting here, he's a guy who historically has been very good from a rates perspective. This year, his rates are way down. They've completely cratered. He's not using possessions. He's not rebounding. He's not assisting. He's not really doing anything out there. It would be a really weird situation for DFS because I think the field would go to it. And I would want to be away from it. But if the field didn't go to it, given he's shown some semblance of high usage in the past, I'd be like kind of intrigued. But I think the field will run to it based on his priors. And it's a little bit of a scary situation for me, but I'm going to lean on the fact that this DNP-CD, when like this has been the norm for him all year. So I think even if he starts, I don't think they want to play him a ton. So just buyer beware on RJ Hampton tonight, even if you do see him in the start.
RJ Hampton minutes projection. Let's hear him.
I think 16 is the number if he starts, I think I'd bump it to like 19, but be very uncomfortable.
Okay. I have him at 16 right now too. So good to hear we're on the same page. Yeah. If it was starter, I would be tempted to go like 20 to 22. But,
I don't want to go too high. It's really hard. It's really a hard situation. But if they let him be the starter and let him run things, he could bury you. So I probably would go like 22.
He's literally the only point guard on the roster.
Yeah,
that's around the range of what I have Kevon Harris for 2022 now as a presumed starter. So I just kind of flip their minutes.
Yeah, I think we have him a little bit closer to like 24. But I think they could easily spread all these guys. They've liked what they've gotten from Bol. He's been great.
Dude, yes. Let's talk about Bol.
Yeah.
He might be on the radar tonight. I'm not even kidding. His rates are he's averaging 5.4 blocks per 36. His usage should be decent tonight. I think, 26 minutes is very within the range, 26, 27, 28, maybe even gets up there. Like, he plays really well, and RJ's terrible, and they don't get anything from Harris or Houston. Like, he's earned those minutes for sure.
He's been great, and his big thing when he came into the league, the Nuggets, he was the guy that was going to be a top 5 pick. Then he got hurt. The Nuggets kind of took a shot on him. I don't know if it was late first or early second. I think it was second round that he had fallen all the way to in the draft. And it was a situation where, like, every time he saw the floor in Denver, the dude was trying to like make up for all the time he had not been on the floor. He was taking every shot. He was trying to like block every shot. He was trying to steal. It was like watching like a 6-year-old soccer game where like wherever the ball is, there's just a horde of people. That's where Bol was. He was just going wherever the ball was at all times in those spots. And this year he looks like he's playing within the structure of an NBA system. And he's doing pick and roll stuff with Franz, and it's looking pretty good. Which is another reason that I can't believe the Magic have started this poorly, given like Bol's even kind of working out for them.
It's injuries though, man. Their guard depth has just been decimated beyond repair. Fultz and Suggs and Cole Anthony, Gary Harris, like it's brutal for them.
Yeah. They're how down bad. They're RJ Hampton down bad. Great matchup. The Hornets are number 1 in shot volume at the rim on offense and bottom 5 in shots allowed at the rim on defense. So Bol could really clean up on both ends. So I don't know if I would go there with DFS, but it could be a really nice Bol.
Yeah.
We've seen it against the Knicks. I think like 27% usage. We've seen these instances where he has some offensive ceiling. Obviously, we know the defensive ceiling is there with the blocks already. Yeah, the rebounds he can get 10. I think he got 10 last game. So
yeah, he's completely iced Mo Bamba basically. It's interesting. Me and a cash game Gary will be behind the paywall at 5:00 Eastern time, talking about that one today. I'm sure he'll have thoughts on Bol if you didn't get enough here. All right, 2 more injuries I want to tackle before we get out of here, because I think they're kind of interesting on the rotation front. First, in Washington, DeLon Wright. Oh man. One, I love DeLon Wright as a player. I think he's a really impactful, effective player, and I enjoy watching him play basketball. 2, we had an unofficial over that we had given out to the Discord because it was only on like MGM on him the last game at like 10.5 PRA or 11.5 PRA or something. He was like one stat away from it with like 9 minutes left in the game, and he goes down, loses, doesn't come back. Is going to be out a while. He was playing pretty effectively too, though. 4 steals and a block in 16 minutes. It was a good game for DeLon Wright. How are they going to fill the rotation? We've been talking all preseason about how bad Johnny Davis looked in Summer League. And I don't think they want to play Johnny Davis, but I think that's going to be the natural inclination, is like, oh, this is an opportunity for Johnny Davis to get time. What are your thoughts here, fan, on how Washington replaces those like 20-ish DeLon Wright minutes they have a night?
Yeah, there was like resignation from the Wizards beat writers that, oh man, we're probably going to see some Johnny Davis now. Not too excited about it. Obviously bolsters the floor of Monte Morris. They'll play some Will Barton, in that spot as well. Bradley Beal will take on some responsibilities, and they can play up. They slide up Will Barton, Denny Avdia at the 3.
Yep.
They have some options there. So I think they'll kind of just fill it in collectively. But obviously the biggest winner from this is Monte Morris. Like, his minutes were getting seriously cut into and threatened by DeLon Wright and his defense. So he's the biggest winner here for me.
Minutes projection on Johnny Davis tonight for you, fan.
Oh my gosh, let me pull it up. Let me
while you're pulling that up. Wes Unseld was asked how they're going to replace DeLon Wright. He said it was going to be Monte Morris, obviously, Bradley Beal, ball handling, Will Barton, and Denny Avdia as well. We saw when they were shorthanded last year, they lead into some Denny ball handling. So he's in a pretty good spot. He's been playing great. A lot of on-ball defense from him. And also worth noting, too, Corey Kispert's close. Yeah. Not playing tonight, so he'll be back soon. So they could just cut it down and go like Nick Nurse for a game and not play Johnny Davis because they do have reinforcements coming. So I don't think he's going to play like almost at all.
I have Johnny Davis for 6 minutes tonight.
That's what we have. That's exactly what we started with. Like our first run, one of the guys had like 15 and just like kind of plugged him in the back. And I was like, let me see where we can knock this down, because I don't think they want to play him. And then we went to 10, and I was like, I think we can knock this. I think we still have more room. I think like we can get Barton up to like upper 20s, Avdia up to upper 20s. It's just
because he theoretically is still a DNP-CD risk, so I don't want to go.
Yeah, I agree. I think the range is 0 to 12. Right, is what I think the range is. So that's why we've got him at 6. Okay, the other smaller situation I want to touch on. This one's actually a little bit bigger than DeLon Wright, but Grant Williams. No Grant Williams for Boston tonight. And they're without Time Lord. It's a Williams epidemic in Massachusetts. Go Eafs, for those of you familiar with the area. How does Boston handle the loss of both Grant Williams and Robert Williams in their rotation tonight? Mike, I'll start with you.
They don't. That hurts, man. And the matchup too, against your guy. My God, man, because Noah Vonleh has been big bad. Horford looks kind of old. He needs more chocolate milk. His minutes could be really high. They probably have to go to Luke Cornett here. It's gross. I mean, we've been talking about this. This rotation is so concentrated around the starters, Malcolm Brogdon and Grant Williams. Taking him out, they may really, really, really push up the minutes for those 6 guys I said. Just piece it together with the Vonlehs, Cornets, and those guys, but nobody really to take away from. Just those other guys have to play so much. Horford has to play a lot today.
Blake Griffin, Noah Vonleh.
Yep.
What do we got going on here, Justin Fan? How does Boston cope?
Sam Hauser, come on down a little bit more. More minutes for him. This is a brutal time for this to occur because they're going to play against Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. Both those guys should be in really good spots tonight. Evan Mobley, we talked about the squeaky wheel. And him finally got fed last game. He should be at another good spot tonight. So for me, it's more relevant on the other side. Yeah. If you're plugging in more Noah Vonleh, Blake Griffin, Sam Hauser, it's not great for the Celtics defense.
Yeah, I would note that I think that is where it's more relevant. I do think it also brings in a little bit more risk on all the main Boston guys because so all the main Boston guys, right, they already play so much. It's hard for them to play more. Like Tatum and Brown are usually 35 to 38 a night. It's hard for them to play much more. It's hard for Marcus Smart to play a ton more. Maybe you can give a few more minutes to Brogdon or Derek White or those guys. And Grant Williams does a lot of things out there without eating possessions, right? He provides floor spacing. He provides defensive help. He knocks down threes that helps your assist rate. He does all these little things that kind of help those studs, right? And so this is one of these weird scenarios where you take out a piece of the rotation, and I actually don't really think it helps the main guys because it's going to put in somebody else who's going to do those things worse and maybe use more possessions and maybe be worse defensively and maybe bring in blowout risk. We saw them get annihilated in Chicago. And so it's one of these situations where it's very rare where you take out a rotation player, and I actually think it doesn't help the other Boston guys very much. I think it opens up room for more rates competition. I think it opens up room for more defensive weaknesses that ask more of the main guys defensively. I think it's not a great thing for the main Boston guys.
Yeah, this isn't a main Boston guy. I think he's a little thin to begin with, like 16-17% usage rate. But Derek White, I think, has to play a lot more. It definitely elevates his minutes floor. I don't think Brogdon's going to really see an increase. I think they've been pretty firm to this point of the season. We're seeing it that he's playing like 22, 24 minutes. He's not going to suddenly play 28, 30 minutes just because they're shorthanded one game. I think they're pretty disciplined in their plan for him. So Derek White's probably a guy that I would see, getting a bit of an increase after playing just 26 minutes. He's played like 25 minutes, 24 minutes in some other games too. But, I think Orlando, he got up to like 37. So
I think he might be playing mid 30s tonight. It would not surprise me. But it's a tough matchup to do all this stuff.
Yeah.
Like this is the challenge. Against smaller teams, I'd feel very confident in that. But Cleveland's a pretty big team. So we'll see.
Yeah. Just to add to their half-court D has been really bad, 28th in half-court defense. Their starting lineup has the worst rebounding rate at 42% among lineups with 30 minutes. So those are two things.
How can you be so bad at defense with the defensive player of the year on the floor, right. Mike? I don't understand.
I'm not complaining. I love it. But it's crazy, man. They're slipping, man. But I want to bet Cleveland so bad. Just can't bet against my guy Tatum. I can't do it.
Just to close this out on the other side, on the Cleveland side, and I want to talk about this quick, is Isaac Okoro, the new Patrick Williams, or the Patrick Williams 3.0. Is he like, was his deep weight?
Bogus 5.0.
It's bad. Like both those guys are so trigger shy on offense. They just don't want to do anything. And they're not. I don't know. Are we going to see Okoro back in? Are we going to see Dean Wade again?
I think we've had a lot of Dean Wade drumbeat, right? He got the contract extension before the season. I think they like a lot of the stuff that Dean Wade provides. So I think you're going to continue to see a lot of Dean Wade.
Just to add too on the Cleveland side, after the game, Bickerstaff said that Mobley's still like in the preseason, and we saw he took over in the second half. So I think what we saw in the second half against this matchup, man.
It's coming, baby.
I thought you were going to plant. He got the squeaky wheel narrative, So
I had to go. I had to go with Jordan Clarkson. It worked out all right.
Yeah, very well done. Very well done. So I definitely a possible flag play candidate. I think he could really pop off.
All right. Speaking of flag plants, the premium DFS show will be at 5:00 Eastern with myself and Cash Game Gary. We also have people in the chat asking, "Where's the Discord info?" Members only, I assume. That's right. Thank you for the wonderful segue, Christopher. You can check out the subscribe page over on establishedrun.com. Subscribe NBA. Get an in-season DFS package or an NBA player props package. 2 separate packages, 2 separate Discord channels, the same Discord. And we're in there giving away bets or DFS information. Along with the in-season DFS package, you get Mike Gallagher's matchups column, which is already out today. It's a short novel about each and every slate with a nice tight beginning, middle, and end. That'll leave you satisfied and ready to play DFS that night. Also, while you're here, if you're not interested in buying a premium membership to establishedrun.com, at least give us the free clicks. So subscribe to the YouTube channel here and click, press, or gently hold down that like button. You can even smash it if you'd like to help feed that algo. We will be back on Monday with another edition of Established Run's NBA injury report.
You forgot, dude.
Feed the algo. Nom, 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 nom. Have a good weekend, everybody.